Hello and welcome everybody. This is Patrick Moran from the marketing team here at H2O.ai. To start off, I'd like to make sure that you can hear us correctly. So if you could just type into the chat box that you're able to hear me. Once we get confirmation, we'll go ahead and get started with the webinar. Once again, we're just waiting for confirmation that you can hear us audibly. Please type that you can in the questions tab on your console. Okay, great. So we're getting some confirmation. We can go ahead and get started. Once again, my name is Patrick Moran. On the marketing team here at H2O.ai. I want to thank you for joining us today. I'd love to start off by introducing our speakers. We have Ruben Diaz, who is a data scientist at Visión Banco based in Asunción, Paraguay. He's married and has 3 children. We also have Rafael Coss, who is a community maker at H2O.ai. Previously, he was managing director of community and a technical evangelist at Hortonworks. Before Hortonworks, he was leading and managing the worldwide big data product enablement activities in IBM's big data development organization. Now, before I hand it over to Ruben and Rafael, I'd like to go over a few webinar logistics. Please feel free to send us your questions throughout the session via the questions tab in your console. We'll be happy to answer them towards the end of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and a copy of the webinar and slides will be available after the presentation is over. Now, without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to the speakers.
Thank you, Patrick. Hi, folks. This is Rafael Coss, and Ruben and I will be doing this session jointly. So first of all, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter. I know both Ruben and I are active there, or to tweet about this session. So here's our handles. So I just encourage folks to kind of be social. Also, kind of be social in the chat. So a brief agenda for today. We're going to do some introductions. Particularly going to go into kind of Visión Banco's journey. They're in their 4th generation of an AI solution. Kind of look at some of their results. Kind of look at some lessons learned. Kind of what they're kind of looking in the future. We'll also be talking some about just a quick little primer on driverless AI, as what is it and how does it work. So Visión Banco, right? So Visión Banco is a communal bank in Paraguay. It is really focused on kind of the mid-sector in the market, trying to be accessible to as many people as they can. They have many use cases around machine learning. We'll go through some of them in our presentation, but really their journey started around credit risk scoring, right? And their environment, they have a sort of on-prem, they have an on-prem cloud environment, not the public cloud, but an on-prem cloud that's sort of working with an IBM Power 9 server. So for the folks who are maybe not as familiar with Paraguay, so Paraguay is a country in South America. You can see in the map, it's sort of in the center, so it's landlocked, right? So it has no access to the water. It has 2 official languages, Spanish and Guarani, right? It has many points of interest. It has a very robust industry around sort of electricity, sugar, and various other agriculture sort of products. So Visión Banco is one of the top 10 banks in the country. It has the largest number of agencies and branches throughout the country. It employs about 1,700 employees. It's a very inclusive bank. So about half the population of Paraguay have accounts. They have over 1 million customers, and they're focused in both microfinance and sort of the small, medium business area. So Visión Banco is in their fourth generation of machine learning. So Patrick, can you run the poll question? So we have a poll question for you guys. Is where are you in your machine learning journey?
Yes, we just ran it.
Great. And so we'll start seeing some results from folks. So in the case of Visión Banco, their first generation, again, focused on credit risk scoring, using logistic regression, was sort of working, taking their business intelligence team, and their business intelligence team sort of starting to become machine learning data scientists. And so with that, they kind of worked with some consultants and built out some tooling and infrastructure to build a model. This took them about a year to do, and they initially started with SPSS. Their second generation of machine learning was really starting to explore more open source tooling, right? And at the same time, looking at additional algorithms like random forest and GBM. So in this generation, they really started starting to use tools like R, and which they kind of found very helpful to improve the accuracy of their models. But sometime in that second generation, as they started becoming more advanced and building more models, they ran into a performance challenge, right? It was taking days to run, to build particular models. And so they were looking for a way to kind of speed up their model development process. And they came across H2O's open source, right? So H2O AI is a company, and we have an open source project called H2O. Sometimes this is H2O 3 at the moment, sometimes referred to as H2O Core. And so in there, they saw a boost in the performance, right? So the speed in building up models improved significantly. But additionally, they saw a bump in the accuracy, right? So now their accuracy scores for the credit risk model became much higher. And so they're looking at things like XGBoost, deep learning, building ensemble models. And then about a year and a half ago, they started a journey where as they started adding more and more workloads into the machine learning environment, again, they run into a challenge of how fast these things are building, right? And they came across, I think Ruben was in the early beta version of Driverless AI, so he might be amongst our oldest users. And so he came across it and, started looking at building models. And again, Visión Banco saw a bump in efficiency of time, like how quickly the models are built. So in this case, they're looking at leveraging currently in production. They have an IBM Power System AC922 server with NVIDIA Tesla cards V100s with GPUs. So with this environment, they saw a significant boost in how quickly they can build models, right? And then also how quickly they can deploy models. And they also saw with that a corresponding also bump in accuracy, right? So in each iteration, as they've gone through their journey with Visión Banco, they've seen sort of an improvement in the performance of building models and in accuracy, right? Also sort of along those lines, their initial credit risk model took about, the first generation took a year to build. Now with their H2O Driverless AI sort of infrastructure that they have today, within 3 days, they can build and deploy these models, right? So a very significant sort of boost, not only in sort of productivity, but also in the accuracy of the models. And so we're seeing sort of the survey come in, right? And I can see a lot of folks are in sort of in the beginning of the journey, right? So starting to explore AI. So this is a great place to kind of do it, kind of learn from some people who have done it before. See some like about a quarter of the folks have some teams and are starting to build models, and about a quarter of folks actually are actually starting to look at automatic machine learning to try to improve some of their productivity and hopefully the accuracy of their models. So thanks for participating in that survey. So, Visión Banco's needs. So, Visión Banco is a bank, and they have the need to expand the credit services to as many people as they can. As they look at expanding the need of credit services, they have to manage risk. So they have a set amount of capital. They want to make it available to as many people as they can, but they have to manage that risk. So with that, they definitely look at sort of an accuracy of a model. And, being able to have a timely model is also very important. So the speed is important. And then, as they keep growing the amount of customers, we mentioned they have over 1 million customers, being able to consume and build a model for that amount of people is very important. So Visión Banco's use cases, right? So you really can look at the use cases divided into 2 groupings. One is around risk management, right? So we're looking at things like credit risk scoring, figuring out if someone's going to default on a particular payment, fraud detection. And the other sort of one is sort of looking at the business, right? So risk management is like really core part of Visión Banco's business, and that's really where they started their machine learning journey and sort of focus. And as they've been successful with, accomplishing some of their objectives in that area, other line of businesses have started saying, hey, can we also leverage AI and machine learning to improve our business, right? To take our business intelligence to the next level, right? And so in that area, they're looking at things like their sales team being able to build models to identify people who might be interested in other banking products, right? So they have a propensity to buy model, right? And at the same time, they're looking at customer churn. What customers do they have right now? Who might be at risk at leaving? What are some of the factors and how they can kind of prevent some of that? Customer segmentation, and building a recommendation engine. So if they purchase this item, what other items might they also be interested in purchasing? I just want to kind of note on the propensity to buy model they did for their line of business. They saw the model help them double their sales in that particular area, right? So these things can have a very significant impact into the bottom line, right? So not just in your sort of core business, but other lines of businesses as they're trying to explore leveraging AI to drive their business. So I just want to mention a little bit about kind of take a step back in their journey. So Ruben really started his journey in November of 2017. And at that point, driverless AI was fairly new in the market and was trying to see how they have a very small data science team. It's about 6 people. And they work very closely with the business intelligence team. And as they keep getting additional workloads, additional use cases coming into their environment, they're trying to figure out how to make their team as productive as possible and try to reduce the time to build and get to a certain level of accuracy, right? So as they have more junior people, can they have a tool to kind of complement these junior people and kind of give them some additional expertise and guidance, kind of reach that, that level of accuracy, right? So they did a POC in the cloud, leveraging GPUs. And part of it was they're looking at a data science challenge by Analytics Media. And the challenges around churn prediction. And there was a use case they were trying to get into the bank. So it was very solid, that public data set followed a very similar sort of data set. And so with that, Ruben, just using driverless and being a very novice user with driverless, was able to get 8th place in that competition, right? And this was very surprising to Ruben, right? That previously he's also done different data science competitions. He never placed in the top 10, and the fact that driverless AI was able to help him get to a point where he can get 8th in this competition was a very big win, and at the same time proved to him like how powerful this tool is, not only in sort of productivity, but kind of boosting the accuracy of models. And Ruben's written a blog about this, so you can kind of look at the QR code, take a picture of that, get to the link, or if you type quickly, you can kind of get this link or look at the slide share afterwards, kind of to look at this. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about, we talked about Visión Banco, and let's, for the folks who might be a little bit new to driverless AI, and what is this driverless AI tool? So as many of you might be familiar with, there's a whole workflow around building machine learning models. So it starts off with data integration. So you have to look at your data warehouse, your data lake, your sort of Hadoop infrastructure. What are all your various data sources? What's a project that you want to kind of work with? And how can you bring those data sources together, do some data wrangling, some ETL to kind of like get the set of features that you want to start looking at predictions, right? Then you kind of go to this sort of data quality check to make sure that things make sense. Do some additional data cleansing, maybe kind of deal with empty values, right? And then you start this iterative process of building models, right? So you have a set of features. You might start doing some feature engineering. You choose particular algorithms and tools, and do some hyperparameter tuning with those algorithms. Have a model and do this many times to get to the point where you have a winning model. And once you have a winning model, you kind of look at doing that, taking that winning model into sort of production. And this is where driverless is really focused, right? So driverless doesn't do any data integration or data prep. We have a sort of an ecosystem partners that focus in that area. But driverless is really focused in this piece around sort of model optimization, right? And we do some data quality in the sense of, we don't do the data cleansing, but we do provide some visualizations and some help in trying to identify, do you have a good data set before you start? So what does a quick flow look like within driverless AI? Well, you start with a whole collection of data sources, and we have a whole collection of connectors, and it's an ongoing list. This is not necessarily a complete list. And you do your data wrangling, data prep, and your starting point is you have something that looks like a table, right, where you have a series of features that you hope to have some predictive power, and you want to find which of these features actually help with a prediction, and then you actually have a prediction. So in this case, you want to have an example that you follow. And then the next thing then you start off with driverless, you import a data source, you do some visualization. So this is where we provide automatic visualizations. This is sort of led by a team by Leland Wilkinson, who's sort of the grandfather of ggplot and been sort of an architect in many visualization tools. So ggplot in R and in Tableau, and now it's driving the visualizations within driverless AI. And so here we have a notion in driverless AI called AI to do AI. So you can see the beginnings of that with the automatic visualization. So the set of visualizations are different depending on what we see in your data. So we might show particular outliers. And say, hey, here's values that might seem like outliers. Things like correlation graphs. Looking at a heat map to see, how complete your data set is. Once you kind of do that data quality check, then you're actually ready to start an experiment. And this is where, driverless AI can work with CPUs and GPUs, right? And we do this sort of optimization process where we do advanced feature engineering. We select a collection of algorithms, do model tuning and do it in an iterative process, right? And in the case of Visión Banco, right, they're leveraging a Power 9 server with NVIDIA GPUs. And then at the output of that, we have a winning model, right? So there's a winning model that, Driverless AI is going to suggest. And we also kind of generate a whole set of machine learning interpretability sort of reports and sort of infrastructure. So if it's a complicated model where you want to better understand how it works, so you probably want to go through and do some analysis on the performance metrics of the model and look at some of the machine learning interpretability reports to kind of understand it and kind of validate, that this is a good model, right? And then once you got to that point, you're kind of ready to deploy, right? And the deployment is this thing called a scoring pipeline. So we have deployment for both Java and Python. And the scoring pipeline includes both the model and the feature engineering, right? And so you can kind of quickly take that into production. So I just want to mention that, Driverless AI at the moment is focused on supervised learning, right? So it's really focused around learning by example. So in this case, here's a very simple sort of data set, kind of looking at trying to predict, someone is going to default on the payment or not, right? So the example that we're trying to follow is that default column, and we have a couple of input feature sets, right? So age, income, last payment, right? And clearly, this is a simplified version. And so you have some training data, and you also have a test data set, right, where you don't include the actual results. And what you want to do with supervised learning is, what's the pattern? What's the pattern in the features and the values in the features that kind of leads to a particular, result, right? So what we want to do is, can we create a model to guess what that default is, right? And that's really what supervised learning is sort of focused on. When we look at supervised learning, there's really like two types. One is classification, right? So in looking at our last example, whether someone's going to default or not default on a loan, that's a good example of classification. If you're looking at a tweet or some text around sentiment, is this positive or negative sort of sentiment? And this is not just binary, so you can have multi-level sort of classification, right? And the other one is sort of regression. So regression is sort of looking at a prediction that could be continuous. So a good example for this is forecasting sales into the future. So you have your sales that have happened in the past. You have various indicators into what's sort of driving those sales, and you kind of want to look at it at a continuous sort of prediction into the future of that, right? So regression is the other sort of form that we work with Driverless AI. Driverless AI is very focused on tabulated data, right? So at this point, we're not doing, video or image processing, right? The data has to be in kind of a tabular format. We have a couple of special recipes to focus on, a subset of sort of supervised learning problems. One is around time series and sort of forecasting. So we do support that. And the other one is NLP. Now, NLP is a very broad area. So within that area, we really are focused around categorization and sentiment, right? So whether you're in a call center and you've done some classification of the different, you've done speech to text, and done some classification of the calls coming in. You have reviews from people that you classified into different groupings. We can kind of do categorization and sentiment for that in a supervised learning fashion, right? And this is where we're at today. Driverless AI is a very dynamic product. It keeps evolving as the market and the technology keeps evolving, right? So I would definitely stay tuned with our blog and our Twitter handle on the latest developments. So Driverless AI it's a commercial product, but it's powered by open source. Right, so these are some of the frameworks and tools underneath the cover that is being leveraged by Driverless AI, right? So XGBoost, like GBM, H2O, open source, scikit-learn, TensorFlow, and we also implemented some additional algorithms like RuleFit, FTRL, GLM. The interesting thing to note here is Driverless AI is a tool. but we're also an engine company, right? So, H2O is a distributed machine learning engine. And so not only do we have the capability to both kind of sort of automate machine learning via the tool, but we have to actually have the capability to kind of build and enhance existing algorithms, right? Whether it's contributing back into the open source, they want to developing new things as needed. So Visión Banco's AI architecture. So Visión Banco's AI architecture, really, as you look at the top right, and as kind of many of the folks here kind of starting their AI journey, that's the objective, right? You want to build a particular solution, which is things like credit risk scoring, for example. And so to get to there, there's a whole infrastructure and architecture that you need to kind of work with, right? So you have an area sort of building models, right? And that building models is you're looking at data sources, doing data prep, building a machine learning workflow, right? And at the end of that machine learning workflow, you've identified a winning model. Once you identify a winning model, you need to kind of take that to deployment, right? And so you either deploy that in real time or in batch, right? And there's some other infrastructure around, machine learning DevOps and sort of model management that we're working with, right? So as we look at driverless AI, so driverless AI really fits into that machine learning workflow, right? And so on the modeling side, and it does provide you a model in both Java and Python that you can then deploy, right? And this infrastructure can work both on-prem and in the cloud. So Visión Banco's AI architecture, right? So this is kind of looking at what their architecture actually looks like today, right? They have this is not necessarily a complete list of all the data sources they work with, but they have a wide variety of data sources that they work with and ingest. They're doing sort of data prep using Pentaho, R, and Python, and SQL, right? And doing all the data massaging, passing that over to driverless AI. They actually also use anything you can do within driverless AI with a GUI can also be driven via Python. So they have some Jupyter notebooks where they drive some of the work for driverless, which they can then automate into their DevOps environment, which they use with GitLab. They are running an infrastructure with Power 9. They run driverless in a Kubernetes environment with Docker, right? Once they sort of built a model, they run batch scoring, taking the model, wrap it in within a user-defined function within DB2 and doing sort of batch scoring within their relational database management system. They also do real-time scoring via a REST service and via sort of a triggered environment within sort of DB2. They've been doing model management for a while. So they built their own infrastructure where they kind of keep track of model metrics and they store that into a database and have a series of Cognos reports to kind of see the health of their models, right? So I just wanted to sort of double click into the real-time scoring. So that's really looking at that AI solution box at the top and the real-time scoring box. So if I double click into that, when we do sort of real-time scoring, what does that look like, right? So there's a user that we're capturing some initial features with. Those features get captured in a Node Java application. They get sent over to a REST server. That REST server wraps the Java Mojo scoring pipeline. Those values get scored. Those results get sent back. And at some point, they get back to the application where the application then takes an action, right? And so here for, how to deploy that model, one of the interesting things, H2O is an open source company. Visión Banco is also doing open source. So they've taken their model deployment infrastructure and put that on open source. So you can find Ruben's GitHub repo here. Again, there's a QR code, so if you take a picture of that, you can get to that. So feel free to explore that and hopefully also contribute to that. So one of the things that's very important in the banking sector, not only here in the United States but internationally, is being able to explain models, right? To interpret the results, right? As you do machine learning development, right? Sometimes you can come up with very complex models that are difficult to explain, right? So you know, in a regulated industry, whether it's banking or insurance or many others, you know, not only do you have to build accurate models, but you have to be able to explain them. If you can't explain them, and you know, then you can't actually take them into production. So, you know, Driverless AI kind of has a series of tooling to automate, you know, building reports to explain and interpret sort of results. So what that kind of looks like here is, you know, you go through a process of building a model. So you build a model, can be a fairly complicated model, and you have some initial, in that model development, like you have some initial features that you might be interested in, right? So again, kind of going to sort of that credit risk scoring, right? You know, whether it's their payment history, their location, their profession, their job history, you know, their monthly balance of the system, what other assets they have, right? And their objective is to actually accept a loan, right? And so they go through an effort to kind of build models, but they also need to explain them. So as they look at explanations, they want to be able to build models where they can have things like reason codes. They can use techniques like Shapley and Lime to interpret these more complicated models. And as they interpret the models, they want to be able to kind of like understand, oh, the important features in the global model are, you know, does this person pay on time? Do they have steady income? It's a stable job. And so they want to both understand the global model, and then when they actually score, some kind of local model results. So it says, for this individual, right, these are the reasons why we're going to accept or reject a particular loan. So you can imagine, you know, if there's a person, Bob, who applied for a loan, you know, and got rejected, called into the bank, and you know, trying to understand why his loan got rejected. You know, the person on the other side says, oh, well, you know, we've built a GLM model, and you know, actually we've built an ensemble model with, you know, GLM model and a couple other sort of techniques, and you know, the model is telling that, you know, you're not a good qualified user, and we have these advanced feature engineering columns that say, you know, that at this moment say that, you know, we can't give you a loan. So that's not, you know, something that could work in that environment, right? What we want to be able to do is talk to Bob and says, hey, Bob, we see that you missed your last payment. We see that you missed a payment 2 months ago. We see that your income has, you know, your balance has also come down. And for this reason, at the moment, we're not able to give you a loan, right? And so the better that you can, and the more accurate you can make models, that's great, because you can give credit to more people. And at the same time, you want to have models that are interpretable, so that as your customers react to that, you can kind of give them explanations, and then you can kind of build trust in what you're doing within your senior management, and then at the same time be in compliance with any governance and regulations that your country might have. So results around Visión Banco. Hey, Patrick, I just wanted to do a quick check-in with you.
Yeah. Yes,
so,
Rafael.
So is Ruben still trying to get
no,
on?
No, he's on. No, Ruben is here.
Okay, great. So Ruben, do you want to talk a little bit about the results that Visión Banco has had?
Sure. Yes, that's true. The use of the driverless AI tool improves our work. There's a joke. A coworker said to me, "Hey, you don't have to do a lot of lobby to buy that tool, because you could lose your job as a data scientist." And I say, okay, maybe that's true, because a big part of the job as a data scientist is done with driverless AI. However, in the meantime, this tool make my job easier, so I can do more models in less time, and that is very productive and it's funny. Then you could do some cargo master quality models in your organization, and that's good for everybody, for the business too.
So Ruben, can you talk a little bit about some of the results in your propensity to buy model?
Yes. We doubled that. We wanted to know what got in common the customer that today got credit card and didn't get one 3 months ago. So we'll collect all the data with customers with credit cards with no credit card 3 months ago. So with driverless AI, we process that data, and the result was a model with a score. So we select the first 1,000 with the highest score, with the top score, and to do the telemarketing call to do the offer. And surprisingly, they more than the double of we are in our, we used to get, so, the double of response. That means
that's great.
The double of business, and for the girls and boys that do the call, the telemarketer, the more money for them too.
Right.
Win-win.
So you can really see improving the accuracy of model makes big business results, right? So it gets your team to potentially, in this case, really focus on, where there's hot prospects that can actually move on potentially buying something. So, building models and building more accurate models can really have a big impact into your business.
Yes, 100% of improving an accuracy of a model can more than $1 million. So that is correlation.
Wow, that's amazing results.
So yeah.
I was wondering if you could share a little bit, because I know you and Visión Banco have been working on machine learning for a while now and gone through multiple generations. Can you share some of the lessons learned with some of the folks here on the call?
Yes, sure. The automation is very important because the task that can be automated, is so you can focus your work in other tasks and do others, the tasks that can be automated. And that's that becomes a more value to the business. So more use case in the same time period, and we can focus in another use case instead of repetitive tasks. And another thing that is very important is the machine learning model needs to be interpretable, because they need to be explained. Not not just for business people. It needs to be explained for the customer too.
Yeah, that's, I can see definitely in a regulated industry that's also very, very important. So Ruben, now you've been working with driverless for about a year and have some use cases into production and starting to see some significant improvements into their bottom line by using an improved accuracy, and at the same time being able to adopt more use cases because you can do more in less time with the automatic machine learning. Can you talk a little bit about some of the use cases that you're looking at doing in the future?
Yeah, sure. As money laundering is very prevention, or it's very important in every economy, because the money is, is not good money. We want to apply the time series, the time series, the characteristic of time series that offer driverless AI to do better forecast than that's good in every organization. Another field that we want to work more with what we are working on, and that is natural language processing and chatbots. In the future, we want to work with voice sound recognition, image recognition, and video detection.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I want to mention a little bit about how to get started, and we'll kind of open up for question and answers after that. I see a couple of people have posted some questions. So if this is sort of interesting to you, here's sort of like some key things you can do to kind of get started today. There's a 21-day free trial with Driverless AI, and that's actually how Ruben got started. There's also a 2-hour free cloud test drive. So if you sign up for the trial, you'll have an option of either sort of downloading a license and using it on cloud or on-prem, or using the 2-hour test drive, right? We now have a series of tutorials. One that kind of gives you an introduction to automatic machine learning with driverless, and the other one around machine learning interpretability introduction. We do have a community Slack. There's I think these slides will be available. You can click on these links to kind of dive deeper into NLP and time series, and I think there's some previous webinars on these topics. The other good resource is H2O World. So H2O World is our community conference. San Francisco just passed, so you can kind of learn about the latest developments in H2O Core and Driverless AI, and at the same time listen to customers talk about their use cases, right? So I just wanted to kind of put out, here's the URL to the test drive. So it's a fairly straightforward URL if you want to kind of try it quickly in about 2 hours. Give you 2-hour time to kind of try it. You'll be up and running with driverless within about 10 minutes. The other thing is that we have a community Slack. So if you have questions, you want to keep the discussion going sort of afterwards, this is a great place to kind of continue that discussion. So with that, that would be the end of the slides. Patrick, I'll turn it back over to you for the Q&A.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. We have some great questions in the chat window. We'll try to get to most of them with time permitting. Okay, so the first question here is, how valuable were the MLI capabilities of driverless AI?
So Ruben, do you want to answer that question?
Yes. Repeat the question, please.
How valuable were the MLI, the machine learning interpretability capabilities of driverless AI?
Oh, great! If you got machine learning project, you need also a machine learning interpretability model to explain that the first model, because it's good to explain to the business users and the customers. And they explain why the black box model, that is the great black box model that is the output of the driverless AI, explain the prediction in an easy way, in a very easy way to understand.
Great.
So it's very important. It must be part of your data science workflow, build a machine learning interpretability model.
Excellent. Does driverless AI do unsupervised and supervised learning?
Hey, Patrick, I'll take that question. So at the moment, driverless AI is focused on supervised learning. We are looking at our future roadmap, and unsupervised learning is on the roadmap. H2O Core open source does support unsupervised learning. So you can kind of definitely use, and I think Visión Banco does something around this where they use H2O free open source to do unsupervised learning, kind of start labeling some data, and then kind of go and start doing supervised learning. But in the future, so the answer is driverless AI is focused on supervised learning, and it's in the roadmap in the future.
Great. Okay, so the next question here would be mainly for Ruben. Did driverless AI help you with all the use cases you mentioned?
Almost every case except the clustering. But we do the clustering with the open source H2O product with coming clustering.
I see. Okay. Next question. How much data prep was involved before building a production-ready model in driverless AI? Would you like me to repeat the question?
Okay. Please repeat the question.
Yeah. How much data preparation was involved before building a production-ready model in driverless AI?
Okay. You just need to prepare a CSV file, or you could use another data sources. But for that preparation, you still need a time to prepare the data to be the input of the driverless AI. Driverless AI automates a lot of tasks that requires a lot of expertise, like feature engineering, model training, tuning, assembling, selection, and the creation of web service scorer. However, you still need to take your time to prepare the input data, like any other data science process, with or without driverless AI. It depends on your organization. It can take for us months, 3 months. But if you got a data warehouse, it's easy to get the data, because the data warehouse makes the consolidation. And data warehouse plus a data lake.
I see. Great, thank you. Next question is it possible to use machine learning unconstrained models other than logistical regression for credit scoring purposes in Paraguay?
Unfortunately for us, we got the lucky that we got no regulations that restrict to use, just logistic regression. That's why we got the freedom to use the other kinds of algorithms in the driverless AI ones, the H2O and like JVM, TensorFlow, etc.
I see. So this is a two-part question. Part one, can you give an example of features that are most predictive for small to medium businesses in Paraguay? And how does driverless AI engineer new features? And how do you interpret these and incorporate them into your scoring pipeline? So here, let's break up the question a little bit further. Part one, can you give an example of features that are most predictive for small to medium businesses in Paraguay?
Okay. It's the same as usual in other parts of the world. I did for training purpose, the public data sets or lending club and the German credit. There are a lot of data sets for credit scoring on the web, free and with free access. And the average, the payment, how the customer used to pay, good pay, bad pay, and there are other features like age, sex, and if is married or not married, or divorced, but I understand that in other countries there are some regulation against discrimination. But it's funny because sex is, women are do better payments, and older people do better payments, and married people do better payments. And that will be a discrimination, against men and younger people or single people, But the more important here in all over the world is the previous payment behavior.
Great. Now the second part of that is, how does driverless AI engineer new features, and how do you interpret these and incorporate them into your scoring pipeline?
For us, it's transparent. We do driverless AI do the feature engineering internally, so we don't take care of that because the tool take care of that. But if you want to, but it's available. So if you want to get access to the transform variables, the tool can give that. So we just use the input variables without the feature engineering, and the driverless AI pipeline takes care of the transformations and the final scoring.
Okay, great. Now, trying to get all these questions, as many as we can. The next question is, have you experienced any issues related to compliance and regulation when putting driverless AI produced models into production?
We didn't yet, but because we got the freedom of less regulation in my country. But we use the possibility to interpret the models to explain the result of scoring to other people, to auditors and government. We explain that in that way.
Okay, great. Now this is part 2 of a separate question, but how does Visión Banco plan to use video recognition?
Oh, that's a future. We didn't start to doing nothing about it. Maybe with the help of driverless AI or H2O, future features of the product will be possible. But it's for us. It's just a middle time project to work with that, but not immediately.
Got it. Great. Now we have, let's see, that about does it for the questions that I'm seeing here in the questions tab. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask them now. I mean,
so I see a couple questions around the slides, if they'll be available.
Oh, right. So yeah, slides will be posted to the same link that you used to access this webinar, as well as the recording of the webinar itself. You can use the same link to come back, and you'll, after like a few hours after the webinar concludes, the video recording will be uploaded. So that will be taken care of. No worries there. And then, well, we do have this one just came in, like a specific one around cloud access to try driverless AI free. Rafael, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So basically, here's a test drive. And so once you register for the test drive, you don't need any separate cloud accounts. You'll be basically using it with H2O. And so you set up an ID and a password. You set an ID and a password. We'll give you access to an environment, which will launch you a driverless AI environment. It takes about 6 to 10 minutes to create the environment. Once the environment is created, you'll have a URL. You can click on the URL, and that gives you driverless AI. We also include a link to a tutorial there, so you can kind of use the tutorial to kind of start exploring driverless AI. But you don't need a separate, you don't need an AWS account per se. You don't need an Azure or Google account. You know, you just need an account with driverless AI or H2O to kind of make that happen. We do have driverless AI is available in every cloud marketplace. So you can go to the AWS marketplace, Azure marketplace, Google Cloud Marketplace, and look for driverless AI. And in that case, you do need your own IDs there. You can start the environment, and then you can apply the 21-day trial license into that environment.
Great. And one more question came in here. How long did it take to develop the model after you cleaned the data?
Oh, can I ask that? Can I just minutes. If your machine got a GPU, it's question of minutes.
Wow. That's impressive. That's great.
Yes.
Okay. So that about concludes our questions for today's webinar. I want to thank Ruben and Rafael for taking the time and doing a great presentation. I'd like to say thank you to everyone who joined us today. The presentation slides and the recording will be made available on our Bright Talk channel. Once more, thank you for joining us and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.